welcome. I welcome you all to this webinar. The topic of the webinar, as you know, is getting ready to resume operations post COVID-19 lockdown for manufacturing MSMEs. And the speaker for today is Dr. Sumit Roy. I'll just provide brief introduction of Dr. Roy. Many of you must be knowing him, but just for the sake of those who do not know him, Dr. Sumit Roy is basically a Lean Six Sigma TQM and business process improvement counselor, and by qualifications, he is a mechanical engineer. Dr. Roy was awarded PhD by BITS Pilani for his thesis on development of an implementation model of TQM in Indian industry. He's a Six Sigma Master Black Belt, registered with registered Lean Consultant and a registered ZED trainer. Dr. Roy has handled several Lean cluster projects formed by MCCI under the LMCA scheme of the Ministry of MSME, and he has also handled the advanced Lean cluster programs. He is also a recipient of the Best Performing Consultant certificate from MSME. So now let us start the session, and I hand over to Dr. Sumit Roy.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. I hope all of you are taking proper care and then getting ready for resumption of operation, provided the guideline and official directive allows you.
Thank you.
Share screen mode and then share my presentation. And my entire emphasis of today's presentation will be from technical standpoint, and that is how do you really take care of all the protocols and requirements for which you should be preparing certain approach, certain mechanism, and certain standard operating procedures. Hello? Some standard operating procedures to get ready to tackle all the challenges after you resume the operations. So certain actions, certain activities which are really required to be done at this stage, because certain activities would require certain lead time. So my emphasis will be basically two-pronged. So the first one is from the aspect of safety and the problems which might really be a threat to the personal health related issues. And the second part is related to the technicalities associated to the production. So I will take up both one by one. So let me just take you to some of the challenges which I have tried to write down here. So one is basically the whole thing that we are talking about, the risk, and risk is a very predominant factor right now. All of us are trying to look at it. I'm sure all of you have seen in the WhatsApp and YouTube, there have been a plethora of information which have been floating, and some of them are really very good, and I appreciate some of those guidelines. I'll get back to you towards the end of the presentation, some of those guidelines which really need to be seen as a reference material. And so one risk is definitely, which is the predominant factor, is the risk associated to health. The other one, if you look at, is the operators and the manpower. So how do you really take care of that angle? Subcontracted material, how do you really take care of that? There are skill related problem associated to the operator. How do you take care of that? Then liquidity of the funds. This is also another big issue. And how do you really take care of that? So considering these things, I have actually come out of one side, you will see the challenges, and another side, you will see that if you classify the challenges into two categories, the category number one is safety. So this is one very important aspect, because without this, probably nothing that we are talking about would really come into vogue. So most important thing is that we are discussing today is the safety. And at the same time, how do you tackle the other soft and hard issues in the light of maintaining that safety? Because it is the safety, we have to understand that this is the safety related problem and issues which are creating the current soft and hard issues. Otherwise, the regular issues we would have faced. But it is safety related aspect which is really bringing this particular problem. So I would try to address the safety related issues and then probably the other soft and hard issues. So As I said earlier, this presentation does not intend to focus on specific health and hygiene protocols. The focus will be more on developing a comprehensive company approach to start the operations post-COVID. So let me go ahead. One moment. Yeah. So challenges to resume the operations and how do you really go ahead with the risk mitigation? So I would like to emphasize on the word mitigation because risks are there for anything. If there is a full-fledged ISO standard also on risk mitigation, but now we are talking about the risk which is of concern to our employees, to myself, to everybody with whom the business is associated and linked, all stakeholders, whosoever is needed to be participated on physically in this entire bringing material, converting the raw material or the input material to value-added item and the product, and then dispatching it. So at every stage, there is a problem of risk. So how do you really take care of that risk in terms of mitigation? So my first approach, which I have adopted, which I would like to explain you, is based on the 4M and the man, machine, material methods and the environment. So if I look at the man part, this man could be the employee, the man could be the subcontractor, the man could be the driver who drives the vehicle, the man could be the security person at the gate, the man could be the canteen service provider. We need to really list down this man. Now the point is that the man faces a problem at home when he's staying, so there need to be some guideline. The man, when he is at workplace, there is a problem, there is an issue. How do you really take care of that? The man who is on the move, that means during the transportation, how do you really take care of that? And the visitors who are coming, I'm talking about the essential visitors. If at all we have to really admit them, then what do you do in order to take care of them? Take care of their health related risks. Now, the second part that is coming is the machine. So please remember that what I am talking right now, I'm not talking about any technical issues. I'm talking about the interface of the man, machine, material, method, and environment, which may lead to some kind of COVID related safety problem. So how do you take care of this interface at man, machine, material, method, and environment? So only that part I'm focusing right now. So when we are talking about the machine, we are talking about the problem when machine is shared. That way, when the equipment also is getting shared, there is a problem. So how do you really take care of that? Then material, which might be incoming material, the material which might be outgoing material, material which is during handling, and material which is during packaging. That is, I'm talking about even the handling may be a problem when the stores issues the material against the indent, or the material when it is being value added in the different workstation, then there is an issue. So these, after the material part, just I would like to go back to add a couple of points. If you look into our SMEs, there are different type of industries. I'm primarily focusing at the manufacturing industry right now in this presentation. And if I look into a press shop, the kind of material and the kind of layout would be by and large frozen as far as the layout goes, because we can't ship the machine. But probably if we talk about the fabrication plant, or if you're talking about assembly, there are certain scopes available. So for example, for a press shop, if there is a feeding from one side and another guy is really taking that particular pressed sheet and then putting it on the other side. So the most advantageous point is that if you are able to maintain the social distancing. So how do you really tackle those things depending on the type of industry? That is what we need to take care. In the methods, we can see layout. So layout, some cases are literally frozen, and some cases there are certain flexibilities which can be manipulated, which can be exploited. Then emergency measures, or what I have written at the end is a crisis management. So in case there is an emergency situation, how do you take care of that? That can be tackled by the crisis management committee. That can be tackled by crisis management methodologies. So disinfection of man, material, premises, toilet, utensils, everything that is associated or that may trigger a health related risk. So all that we need to take care. And even I would say that the during transportation also, this could be a big issue. So methods could be another very important part which we need to address. And as far as environment concerned, we need to again take care of interaction during the working, or interaction at the time when the operator or the employee is entering the factory or entering the vehicle, or the how do you really take care of the temperature, humidity, noise inside the shop, or inside the vehicle in which you are traveling, what kind of air circulation it is appropriate, whether the same air should be going like a centralized AC or a separate AC. If at all AC is needed, I would personally prefer that no AC is used and it is natural air is allowed to come in. And another very important point, based on our discussion with several companies, we are now coming to face is the community-related issues, the community-related commitments that we have. So maybe I would like to come back on this point, but I must emphasize here that winning the confidence of the community is one very important thing at this juncture for starting the operations post-COVID. So develop SOP, standard operating procedure, addressing all the above points that I said with clear accountability. And remember, my definition of accountability is very clear. Accountability word does not normally come in goody-goody situation. The word accountability comes only there where we are finding a problem. Because in case of accountability, the first question people ask is that who is accountable for this particular problem? So accountability, if it is made clear right in the beginning for every activity, then probably the stake is clear and the concerned person can be made responsible to carry out those activities and promote those activities in terms of awareness also. So let me move to the next slide. So just a minute. Yeah. So COVID-19 risk mitigation, now I'm talking about the designing the SOPs. And for designing the SOPs, because there are hundreds of SOPs which I saw in the guideline that has emerged for the OEMs, and people are just confused when we are looking at a SME, that fine, are they all applicable for us? That is the primary question that people are asking. And I would say that please come out with a very simple system. You remember your ISO 9000 guideline for documentation? There were 4 stages or tiers which were promoted at that point of time. The top tier, if you remember, we used to call that Apex manual. And then second tier, we are talking about the departmental procedure. The third tier, we are talking about different, lower level procedures like work instructions, other SOPs, etc. Then the fourth level, we were talking about the record, uh, drawing, record, and other data. So the point is that at this stage, I think there is an important point that SME CEO should be accountable for monitoring at the apex level, and coordinate at the department head level the execution of all the SOPs. So, for example, if I'm talking about the 5S structuring that we used to do in the factories, it has a zone. Can you please put your mic in mute mode? Then we have the zone, and then we have subzone, and then area. And we had in 5S, if you remember, 5S, there is a zonal leader, there is a subzone, there are subzone leaders, and there are many area level leaders. So I would say that let us make full use of that 5S structure. Let us bring it back, even if you have not implemented, come back to the 5S zoning structure, zone subzone structure, and over and above all the responsibilities that we have been managing till now, please make them accountable, the respective zone, subzone, and area, to take care of this COVID-19 risk mitigation responsibility also. So that is one very important message that I would like to give. So for that, there would be a need for understanding of the SOPs. There is a need for promotion of that awareness among all the other members. So that can be led by zone leader, followed by the subzone leader and the area level. So this meeting can be done right now over virtual meeting, and then the understanding can be brought in. So accountability for different type of procedure, and particularly I'm talking about the top level accountability, subzone, and the area level accountability should be made very clear in the SOPs. And then one important point for any SOP is the linkages. So the top level procedure for the at the department at the CO level should be vertically linked to the department head level procedure, and that should in turn be linked to the area level procedures. And for example, if you are talking about the work instruction, there are hundreds of work instruction that I'm able to see. May I request all of you to make a list of the work instructions required for addressing the COVID-19 risk mitigation from your factory's viewpoint. So if you are arranging transport, for example, there can be a very clear guideline and of a work instruction. In some cases it is guidelines, some cases it is work instruction, which will clearly stipulate that how to sit inside the vehicle, or whether the vehicle windows should be open or not, how to enter, how to exit. All that guideline should be there. There should be another work instruction as to how to disinfect the vehicle. If you're talking about the main gate, for example, how do you really address the entry and disinfection of the employees who are coming? If there is a requirement of identification, then we should avoid any common place where everybody were earlier doing the fingerprint censoring. That is no longer needed for under this environment, because that could itself be a potential carrier of COVID-19. So under this situation, probably, like I have seen in Maruti and other guidelines, that people are coming one by one after maintaining the social distancing, and then showing their iCard, and then based on that they are being registered, or it is being sensed from a distance, the iCard, and then like temperature, and then their attendance is getting recorded. So that kind of remote methodology could be a part of the work instruction. Then, for example, the canteen. How do you really tackle the canteen related utensils, and then tiffin, if they, at all they are coming from outside? How do you disinfect them? So those work instructions, I can see hundreds of such work instructions coming in. Please make a list of that, and then please link it to the higher level procedure at the functional head. For example, I'll come to the technical point, technical aspect of the work instruction after some time. But let me mention one thing. Another very big challenge that I can see here at this stage is the maintenance. That is the machines which are lying idle for such a long time. If you have to really bring them up and restore them to the operating condition, how do you do that really? Then comes checklist and then records. Say, for example, let me take this record part. There is a huge requirement of maintaining the medical record and background of all the employees who you are really thinking that they should be enrolled into the factory for resuming your operation. So their medical record and the ongoing record for everybody's medical and the health condition would also be one very important need. And then, as I was talking to you about the type of SOP, disinfection, transportation, accommodation, workplace, toilet, utensils, body, clothes, PPE. And one very important point of PDCA, if you remember the plan, do, check, act cycle, this is applicable here also. And simple act cycle, please do audit, just to understand that your whatever SOPs you have written, that is followed literally, and that is being cross-checked. And then auditors are coming out with a feedback mechanism to improve the system and bringing up the non-adherence related issues. So that is one important point to be taken care of. I would further go ahead and then for risk mitigation for the structure of SOP. So this is a company level apex procedure. This is a functional level procedure. This is an area level procedure, as I said earlier. So functional level means apex, then connected to the procedure at the functional level, who all could be there. For example, there can be maintenance, HR and P&A. I'm finding the role of these two departments very heavily. So those SMEs who do not have the formal HR, definitely you would be having a P&A. So you can encompass some of those activities probably into the P&A domain right now, even though you can need not call it formally as HR activities, but that can nevertheless done. That is the message that I'm trying to give. Then operations related procedures, other function heads, etc. Okay. Then at the area level, as I mentioned, the several work instruction checklists and guidelines having vertical and horizontal linkages for transport, canteen, shop, security. Use of PPE, one based on the kind of situation in which or kind of manufacturing process that you have, the use of PPE could change. And these PPEs I'm talking about over and above the regular PPEs that we are using, say for example welding, say for example in a hazardous area. So say for example in the shop, whatever safety boots we are using. Over and above that, we are having a mandatorily some of the PPEs which are required to be used. In some cases, that could be jacket. In some cases, that could be gloves. In some cases, that could be mask. In some cases, that could be over and above that certain other PPEs also. So make a list of various SOPs required for resumption of these operations. Let me go ahead. Yeah, one moment. Something. Yeah. Some this thing inputs I have been getting from some of the guidelines, and I felt that I just would like to mention you. You all would be knowing about the social distancing. So I have now come to the risk mitigation, soft and hard issues. So earlier I tried to address how the SOP can really address the risk mitigation out of COVID-19. Now I'm talking about certain hard issues or the soft issues that you might be facing at the time when you really go back and try to resume the operation. You will physically face certain problems. So a shop floor, particularly in a SME, if your space was already very jam-packed, and if you have not done lean, I must tell you that one of the purposes of lean implementation was to create space. And we always, divided the shop floor space into two categories. So one space I always call it the active space where direct operation, direct value addition takes place. And another place which is normally getting occupied, which is called the passive space by accumulation of WIP, the accumulation of FGs, accumulation of raw material. Probably today you will be able to realize if you have cleared the shop floor space, how important now in the current situation that space will come to you. Because if earlier the workspace required for carrying out an operation, say for example, 5 welders are standing side by side in the workstations. Now that 5 workstation, if they were occupying a space of 100 square feet, so now because of the new social distancing rule, the workspace requirement might get doubled. So those of you who have not created the space, one of your major objective will be to create space. Because if you do not create space, you will ask the same question that how would you be able to maintain the social distancing? So my suggestion to those people who have not created space, please try to cut down on your operation in such a manner that you obey the social distancing rule, because otherwise you will face a tremendous difficulty to comply with the audit requirement for the social distancing rule. So please maintain. Then the second part is that this is just an example I'm showing. There are hundreds of examples going. I'm just showing this example as a narrative only. So one moment, I think again I'm having, yeah. So, for example, if you are sitting across for working in an assembly shop, or if you have to sit in order to take food. So there, earlier, if you were doing it, opposite to each other, and if the distance was not good enough from the terminology, from the definition of social distancing, then you have to, sit like this in a oblique manner, so that the distance rule is followed. So the distance here also you can see, and the distance here also you can see. I really liked this particular note from Apollo Hospital, Handbook on Life After Lockdown version 2. So you can also take a look at it. And I felt that there is a very comprehensive guideline given for risk mitigation for soft and hard. So this is particularly talking about the risk mitigation from safety viewpoint. So safety at work, a course content they have promoted, a safety at work, then good practices at workplace and everywhere else, or wherever work related services are being done directly or indirectly, including transportation. Then I would say that this is a very important point which has really come out in last couple of days. Europe, USA, and India, probably it has not come to light so much, but I'm sure that this is one fallout which we all have to face, is the stress and coping with the stress, that is mental health. So I would strongly suggest that you try to, in order to create a joyful environment in your shop floor, please try to, counsel your operators and employees on how to cope up with the stress, not only here, but at home also. And if you can extend it to the family member, nothing like it, that will be very, very good. Then next point is that yoga, physical health, calisthenics, music, all these kind of environment creation methodology by which you can create a joyful environment inside the factory. Then another is the preventing communicable diseases. So these are all small modules. I would recommend that you give it a thought and then try to come up with your internal procedure, what permits you. Let us not copy paste anybody, but try to come out within your limitation, because today, because of net, quite a few things are available to you. Find out that what you can do, and based on that, you can come out with some crisp content. And non-communicable diseases, how to prevent them. You can refer to Apollo guideline, vaccinations also. My family, my community, social well-being, and particularly I'm talking about those of our factories which are located in the villages. Please try to establish a dialogue with them, because they have a concern that if outsiders are coming into their territory, then whether their safety related measures will be at jeopardy. So please try to take care of that. And I also agree that a 1 hour briefing, virtual briefing also would do on this particular part. And time to time, recap of that could be good. And there is one important part as a part of the procedure, which should be important for us to remember, is the kind of undertaking that maybe from legal standpoint might be needed with the entities with whom you will be working and the employees with whom you will be working. So this undertaking could be, for example, those who are directly associated with value adding operation or supporting it. The staff should sign an online declaration where they should confirm the following, and this should be done repeatedly to answer: do you have a fever, cough, cold, body pain, etc.? Do you travel? Did you travel anywhere in the last couple of weeks? Do any of your family members have any of the above symptoms? Where you in personal contact with suspected or confirmed case of COVID-19? If they don't understand that, explain it. Did you or your close family member participate in any meeting gathering more than 15% people, etc.? So it is better to keep a tab on that and understand that those things are taken care of by the concerned person. Because undertaking signing is only a personal commitment, endorsing a personal commitment. That becomes very important. Okay. I will now move into more technicalities. So let me start with the objectives. So the objective of the whole thing, as you will find very nicely narrated in even Toyota Kirloskar document as well as Hyundai document, that but for us, I think one primary thing that we are talking about in as a top line objective is to resume operations by mitigation of all risks related to COVID-19 while we continue to do the operations. So these procedures, what I talked earlier, they should address man, machine, material, method, environment through SOP, work instruction, checklist, and records. And there could be commitment, and the commitment could be, as I said to you just now, that undertaking and other commitments from your subcontractor. Maybe some might be needed from your local bodies. Risk mitigation, adherence, audit, come out with the audit checklist, explore the latest methods, because this is something which I've been trying to monitor. That people say that initially they were talking about hydrochloroquine as an effective means in terms of the spray, but subsequently I keep hearing from those who are associated in medical. Just yesterday I saw one from a very well-known doctor, medical practitioner. He was saying that there could be side effects from hydrochloroquine. So you should be in touch with a medical expert who should be keeping you abreast, briefed about the latest methodologies. Because the methodology, what you consider to be applicable, appropriate in today's context, that might not be seen as appropriate tomorrow. So we must change. And probably the time is such that the dynamism is maximum required at this point of time in order to see that the risk is really mitigated to the fullest extent according to the current knowledge that we are having. And examine where all we need to have an insurance. And this insurance part, probably we should not ignore. That could be very much required at this stage to come out with some kind of mechanism. Emergency. So for emergency, understand emergency, come out with a crisis management, keep ready means to execute 24/7. My sincere suggestion to all of you is that we may not understand, as a common man, that how to understand that this is an emergency situation because of the certain issues related to this COVID-19. So we should be briefed by experts so that we are able to understand the medical emergency and act accordingly. There should be, therefore, a group of people who should be monitoring this. So understand with whom. Some could be external. For example, what will be the nearby medical center or nursing homes or hospitals which are dedicated to such conditions. Then what kind of medical aids could be given then and there, whether there is a dedicated vehicle which is required to take the person away, or there could be certain treatment or first aids which could be given initially. So there is a requirement to really think about that and put it on display so that everybody knows that in case of an emergency how to act. Then comes reliability, and I would say this is a very important thing, because today what we saw as a reliability, what we are thinking about reliable system, tomorrow, because of change in our understanding of the entire situation, that may not any longer continue to remain reliability. So therefore, the exploring of the latest methodologies and the reliability, these are currently, I would say, they're strongly related. So reliability of the system, reliability of the appliances, PPEs, and the safety measures. So that is what we need to really take care of that. Then we have to also understand that probably never before there was such a strong need of training, awareness, review, and corrective action. So everything is dynamic, as I said. Based on our knowledge changing, the need for the training awareness module might change, the review system might change, the audit checklist might change, and your corrective action might change. So let me go ahead and deal with some of the technical points which I would like to bring into your attention. Sorry. So what are the main concerns? Technicality. So let me move a little bit now from the medical safety related points which I have been discussing, and the related SOP and the guideline, etc., and the accountabilities. Now I'm trying to talk about the same man, machine, material, method, and environment, and now I'm trying to talk about certain key issues. The first point, while I discussed with some of my companies, some of the members are present here also today, that manpower availability is such a big issue in today's situation that we can just forget getting the normal manpower inducted. As it is, most of the SMEs in Pune area have been, probably grappling with the issue of getting the required number of skilled manpower. So today, I would say one of the most important proactive planning probably needed is how do you really, how many skilled manpower we have. So the question is not how many skilled manpower we need. The question is probably we must understand that how many skilled manpower we can garner by the time we are in a position to start the operation. And let me tell you at the same time that if you are in shortage, in some cases, in my estimate, after discussion with some of the companies, the lead time for getting this manpower could be even up to 2 weeks. It could go even more. So one very important primary information that really you need is estimate the current optimistic and pessimistic number of manpower, skilled manpower availability in line with the operations that you would like to start. So their number and the skill. Forget about speed loss right now. Despite the fact that I'm talking as a lean practitioner, I'm saying that perhaps more important are these factors. Then, if you have made a plan to start the machines, because just because they were lying idle for such a long time, I think proactively before even you start the factory, you need to discuss with your maintenance team, and then come out with some of the technicians with respect to the machines that you would like to restore operation. See that the machines are up and in the right condition, because you might find that in certain cases they might require some oiling, that is our typical CLIT, cleaning, lubrication, inspection, and retightening, tightening. Some of those things, even in some cases, some major work is required to be done, may be required to be done, including the replacement of certain rubber seals, certain aged items. I would say another very big issue that I would say that you might have felt already is the material that is supposed to come from your subcontractor, the timeliness, the quality, and quantity. Without these things, you will not be able to start. So some of them are related to your raw material supplier, while some of them are related to your subcontractors. So, like if you are planning, you must take them into confidence and then make sure that they are also in the loop and they are doing the same kind of thing that you are planning to do. Otherwise, there is no point that you only start a factory. Probably you can only run for as many days for which you are having certain WIP and the incoming inventory. Otherwise, you will not be able to manage. So find out how many days production you can manage. So I'll come to in my next slide about something that I would advocate. You can tackle it more objectively. Then comes another critical thing, that is production planning and control. And if you look at this production planning and control, start with the subcontracting plan, and at the same time look into your own production planning and control and look your dispatch plan. May I say that you should actually be doing the other way around. So start with what order your customer is willing to take, when, and check back with your manpower and subcontracted material whether you can really comply with that. And then travel backward. That means customer related sales plan, freeze it. Based on that, go back and then try to find out whether you have adequate RM. Is there any shortage? Then you should be putting that in place for your follow-up. And also for the subcontracting material, that what all subcontracting material you might require and whether they are in a position. And then if you find that you are unable to get that, so again get back and then change your sales plan. So this to and fro movement you might have to do several times in order to freeze on a concrete sales plan. Please remember that I also understand that there is a huge pressure from the part of the customer to deliver. But at the same time, for God's sake, do not, I repeat, do not compromise with any of the safety guideline everywhere that we have talked about. Because if you do that, your social responsibility would be at stake, and you may be in a position of irreversible situation. So you cannot take that risk. So I'm sure your customer would definitely understand, because several of them have started issuing the similar kind of guideline. Rather, you might be getting some help from them. So to and fro movement, in order to freeze the production planning, will be very, very important. So therefore, flow of material. And one important thing is that because ultimately we come to the bottom line, and therefore, in order to have the top line, you have to make sure that you are able to have the money flow. That means we are having on one side the expenses, another side the receivables. See your check on your corpus, check your funds, and then try to find out that you would be able to manage it. Otherwise, enter into discussion with banks right now for at least 3 months plan. And the plan, I mean, we should be optimistic to see that the level of the escalation in terms of the volumes would be going week to week, week to week. It will be increasing. So come out with an optimistic plan, come out with a pragmatic plan, come out with a pessimistic plan. So in the optimistic plan, if you are unable to meet the liquidity related issues, then probably you can see that whether your pragmatic plan, practical plan, you are able to see that, because that will be one very important parallel things which you need to take care. As I said, layout is a restricted thing for some industries where the machines are all grouted and all, but probably there you need to see that the machines are run in such a manner that the social distancing norm is taken care. So if helper has to stand next to you, you may have to sacrifice the speed loss and have that helper's work also done by the operator for some time, at least that might be needed. So I'm being a lean man, I'm again telling you that there may be situation where you may have to compromise with the losses. When conducting sunrise, sunset meeting, etc., I prefer to conduct it virtually. If it is not possible virtually, maintain the social distancing norm. So here also develop SOP addressing above points with clear accountability. So let me come to the next point. I'm sorry. So make a macro and micro plan so that we are able to tackle these planning related issues. 1 minute. Yeah. So start with confirmed order, customer communication, which I told you just now. Determine manpower, skill availability, filter based on medical history. So please make sure that the guys who agreed to work, they are filtered based on the medical history. Determine raw material, subcontract material needs and availability based on 1, 2, 3. Decide dispatch plan after customer approval. You may have to move between 1 and 4 number of times. Find out shortages in RM, SC, subcontracted material, required lead time. Find out lead time requirement for carrying out dispatch as per 4 above. That is this one. And prepare an action plan to look into the shortages and bottleneck. May I request you to use a time chart or a Gantt chart to make this. So you can write the weeks on top and then below 1 by 1 entity, that is raw material, subcontracting material, manpower availability, and then find out that what you have, what you don't have, and based on that come out with the follow-up and lead time requirement so that you can start those activities right now. Let me go to the next part. See, one important point we have to remember that according to, this is a statistics given by periodic labor force survey, 45% of regular workers in India were found to be earning below 10,000 rupees per month. 12% of workers had paid less than 5,000 rupees per month in the financial year 17-18. Situation might have slightly improved. Why I am bringing this? SME situation is not like a OEM, where the operators are by and large very well aware, competent, and their awareness and promotional activities have happened very nicely. But in SME, our subcontractors also, who are say less than 5 crore in terms of turnover or 2 crores, you may have a real problem in terms of awareness. How do you really take and then create the awareness before you induct these people for working? This is an unprecedented situation. We never faced this kind of situation before. So, one moment. Yeah, I think it is frozen. Lean tools that can be handy at this time, as I have said, Gantt chart, A3 problem solving chart, inventory management, integrated production planning, assembly layout, skill management, audit plans, bottleneck analysis, okay, so that you can prevent certain mistakes and errors at this stage. Kanban. Why I'm talking about Kanban? Please don't block your space, your precious space, by dumping material which you could afford to do it in a very free manner earlier, but you can't do that now. You need space and you don't want accumulation because they could be source of risk. So try to come out with a Kanban system for receiving material and for dispatching material. Produce just in time. Receive just in time. Produce food just in time, receive just in time, allow induction of employees just in time in adequate number. Backward planning needed to address the following critical issues to resume supply on time: skilled manpower, restoring machines, on time in full quantity supply of raw material and subcontracted material, inculcating need of our habits among people. Habits die hard. So spitting and all that, of course, we have been talking about for a long time. I hope none of our lean companies would be doing that. But if anybody has that, come out with a strict penalty for that. No compromise on that. Monitoring risk mitigation procedures by constant vigilance and audit. Very closely monitoring health status of every employee, background also and currently also. Winning the confidence of local community and employees' family members. You know how important is this? Employees' family members. I have cases which have been reported to me that employee is very good, willing, but his family members are not willing to allow him to come to join work. Cash flow, receivables and expenses, keeping ready emergency measures 24/7 and display. Maintaining a vibrant work environment. Do you think it is a joke that having ascertained that this kind of methodologies that we have been discussing about, and despite that you'll be maintaining a vibrant work environment? But I'm sure that that is what is the need of the hour in order to prevent the distress and distress signals, and we should really try to avoid those kind of situation by having those kind of methodologies inducted properly so that people feel joyful. So risk mitigation, soft and hard, we have discussed both some of the technical issues, and we started with some of the safety related, hazard related issues out of this COVID-19. So the point is, this is a contradictory thing. If we take a look at it, we always advocated and emphasized on eye-to-eye contact. Remember that, the HR dialogues, human touch, body language, and then we always say that look at the eyes when you talk, see that you are mentally with a person and working as a team to promote a joyful workplace. And now the demand of the time is to maintain social distancing everywhere and avoid human touch. Therefore, challenge is to create a vibrant work environment through innovative means. Innovation was never needed as much as we need now. We have been seeing Kaizens for the last couple of weeks. Plethora of Kaizens are coming, Pokayokes are coming. So please encourage your employees to really come out with that and charge the atmosphere through collective gestures. Like we saw our Prime Minister, a beautiful gesture for, Diya Jalane Ka. Here we saw how did he really create that you try to come out with a torchlight, then how to come out with some kind of bells, in the evening time. Then you can have music animation, calisthenics, yoga, pranayam, and believe me, in the YouTube and such media, there are so many free, beautiful material moving right now, and people are coming out with voluntarily affording that you can get that. Only point is that how do you utilize that? So I understand that these things take time, and earlier perhaps some of you avoided that to bring in actively, but now time is most important only in terms of managing it effectively. In comparison to other time, it is much more important that you manage it in a hygienic manner, you manage it to propagate the right message. At the same time, you manage it for whatever time you are into the production, manage the time productively. That is important. So don't let the depression to set in. Let me go ahead. I would like to talk to you about a couple of important sources and information that I have personally found very useful. One is from a very famous medical nutritionist Dr. Vishwarup Roy Choudhury. You can see his material, in YouTube. So this is my personal recommendation for immunity development. So as in lean, always we recommended prevention, and we always advocated that prevention is better than cure, and prevention is much more important. If at all there is a failure in prevention, then it leads to a problem, and then from the problem, the root cause analysis, you come up with a corrective action. So at this point of time, very important is immunity development. And I think one great video clip available in YouTube. Please do listen to Dr. P.P. Dewan. Is the professor and head ENT, AJ Medical College and Research Center, Mangalore, for immunity development. For yoga and pranayama, any competent source. For post-COVID guidelines, there are some very beautiful material available freely. Please take a look. Toyota Kirloskar guideline, Apollo Hospital guideline, and I personally found the HMI, that Hyundai's manual for COVID-19 prevention and work resumption guideline. So with that, thanks a lot. And now let us get into the question answer mode. And I'm stopping the sharing.
Thank you, sir, for the great presentation and great session. So, please do not start your audios for asking the questions. You can post the questions on chat box only. So, sir, there are few questions already. So, people have asked that what do you mean by disinfection of man?
Disinfection of
Man.
Oh, disinfection of man. See, the point is that anything that is making an entry into our manufacturing premises should be looked with suspicion. And the man's body, and the man's clothing, the man's shoes, whatever he's wearing, all these are potential carrier of COVID-19. Therefore, we have to assure that when a man comes into the factory or makes an entry into the vehicle in which he is being transported, this man gets disinfected. And there are several disinfection norms which have been recommended by several medical experts. For that, you can refer the Apollo guideline, also the HMI guideline. Apollo guideline is very prescriptive. They mention exact composition of the disinfectant spray. For the shoes, what kind of passage you should be using, so that by the time you are coming out of that passage, your shoes and clothes all are disinfected.
Okay. Next question is how to maintain liquidity?
Yeah, that's a very big question actually. But most important thing for you to understand first is that current corpus that you are having. Two, what is the fund inflow that we will be getting from customer? And probably at the same time, what you require to know is that what is the firm order that you can execute. I'm talking about two things. The firm order at one side I'm talking about, and the second time I'm saying what can be executed by you. So considering what can be executed, you have to calculate the expenses. The expenses related to the subcontracting payment, the expenses related to your employee payment, expenses for you to run the premises. So you need to really come out with all these points to calculate your fund requirement, and then check against your corpus, and then customer inflow of money. And then you can understand that whether your liquidity is there or not. If the liquidity is not there, it is high time that you approach bank or such suitable sources for you to access fund. Very, very important.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Meanwhile, participants, we have launched feedback poll. So those who have not submitted the poll, requesting you to take the poll. Sir, next question is, can you elaborate on vibrant environment examples?
Yeah, that is absolutely important. Guys, I want to talk to you about one of my experiences in Japan, where I was, watching the people who were coming out of the factory at 5 o'clock, and when the general shift ends. And that too, I was watching on Monday morning, and I was watching them on Saturday evening. So, and I recorded it also. And that time, first time I understood what is called the joyful environment. The spirit with which the people entered the factory on Monday morning, that is after the weekend, and the spirit with which people were leaving the company on Saturday evening or Saturday, at 1 o'clock, who have the one half working, I didn't find much change. And that day I understood that what is meant by joyful work environment. But as it is, if you see the environment in SME as it is very, very grim, because I think many workplaces that I visit are devoid of joy. And one purpose of my existence, I would say, is how to really create joy. That is one of the goals of my life, and which I find is one of the most challenging things. So under this grim situation of post-COVID operation, I think that is one of the most important thing, that how do you really keep people joyful and promote those activities which can be managed by you without spending much money. That is one thing is very important. If those of you who are interested to study further, I refer you to consult the Hawthorne experiment conducted very early in 1924 to 32, and then some of those findings were used in 1960. So use music, use environment in terms of creating a jovial work environment. A TVS group of companies, we were doing calisthenics in the early morning. We used to share somebody's good thought. You can do that time and again. Then you can have a break, and during the break also you can have ask somebody to sing a song. If you have a speaker, that is fine. So but whatever you do, create joyful workplace, and at the same time you see that you maintain and abide by the protocols of social distancing and disinfection.
Thank you, sir. So there is another question that if we have to maintain social distance in assembly line, the cost will be high. So can you share some solution for that?
Yeah, I don't know why you are talking about cost will be high, because if you are saying that you want to, because you will be managing then the production in double the workspace, yes, that may be a challenge. But I already told you about that. That if your passive workspace, which you have really blocked by accumulating WIP, FG, please try to get rid of that and try to have a layout, design a layout for assembly in such a manner that social distancing can be kept. I'm sure that most of the companies would find it difficult, those who are not in the business of essential services, to resume the operation with full load. So therefore, you may not face this difficulty if you are able to create the space. But yes, I agree with one point, the speed loss and the availability loss will be there. And with those losses, the cost of production might slightly go up.
Actually, sir, there is one suggestion that if you have any link or anything for the disinfection of workplace properly, then you can just share it in the chat box. Then people will be benefited.
I have mentioned it in the PowerPoint last references, and I have no problem in sharing that PowerPoint and this video with anybody who would like to take access of that.
Okay, we have received couple of requests for sharing of PPT, so we will be sharing with all of them who have attended the session.
Yes, yes.
There is another interesting question from Mr. Shivapurkar. In the manufacturing industry, people are methods of working. To work virtual way instead of coming to office every day.
Can you repeat the question? I could not hear you.
Yeah. In manufacturing industry, we are not habituated with virtual methods of working. So what are the JDs that you identify to work virtual way instead of coming to office every day?
Yeah. See, there are two types of activities. The one activity is that which you can really avoid being in the physical workplace. For example, quite a few data related maintenance, data entry related activities. Then the communication which you are doing with the supplier, with the subcontractor in terms of materials planning, etc. Then designing, then manufacturing engineering related activity. I would say that a person who was coming to the factory, say for example, 24 days or 22 days in a month, in this activity, essentially, you will find that about 50% of the time plus, you might not really need to go to the factory. You might manage to do this remotely. So all that we are talking about, what can be done remotely and what cannot be done remotely. So all those activities which can be done remotely, please stay back at home and try to do that. In fact, I saw a beautiful, clip and then a note coming from some very reputed organization. They are saying that the way of our life has changed so much that probably the life post-COVID would never be same as pre-COVID, because it is going to change forever. And I think this change will be for good. So we should really try to find out and do that. Only try to come out with the direct activities, value-added activities which are being rendered on the shop floor.
And sir, the last question is, customer has lots of fluctuations in demand. So how to maintain just in time?
Okay, I don't think this has much to do with today's topic, but I would try to answer this question to you as a lean practitioner. I'm finding it difficult to resist that question. So if you are saying that a customer demands, today 100, and tomorrow he comes back and says that no, I don't want that 100, make it 50, and change the mix from earlier 10 product mix to a different product mix of another 15, probably. So I know all of you or many of you are suffering from that kind of problem. So in that kind of scenario, it is important that you come out with a very clear understanding with the customer that what is your lead time of production, and please try to ensure that the procurement guy from your customer understands your lead time for production uh, under two conditions. One condition is if you have the enough inventory of raw materials and subcontracting, and another condition is that if you don't have, and that means it has to be really procured from subcontractor, what is the lead time? And if the customer makes a mandate.
Last question to this is,
Yeah.
Person has asked that looking at social distancing issues and problems, how do we retune KPIs of the employees without damaging their enthusiasm?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. So how to assign KPIs to the people without losing their enthusiasm about work?
Okay. I think it is a good question. I haven't thought about that, but triggering that question from, I'm getting a trigger from that question about key performance indicator. Let's take a simple example that a key performance indicator that is used for production planning is the timely dispatch. So timely dispatch, if your plan versus actual you are able to maintain, I don't think there will be any change in KPI, because if your plan changes, your plan is a reduced plan, so KPI does not change. Yes, one big KPI change I'm able to see, which I've been telling again and again, for example, speed loss. Your speed loss will be high, no doubt about that, because now, given the current way of working that we are recommending, that then the speed loss will be there. Availability loss also is going to increase. But for example, quality loss should not be affected by any means. Quality loss should not be there. So there are certain KPIs which, because of situational demand, might change, but there are many KPIs which may remain unaffected. So in that case, you should change a different standard for those KPIs which are likely to change. So don't demand from your employees the same target or same standard which we were expecting pre-COVID.
Thank you very much, sir, for this informative session. And I thank all participants also for joining. So, Satyusha madam, would you like to close the session?